How's it going?
Going what? Going fine.
What? That was good.
It's going.
That was really good.
Apparently.
So I started playing Helldivers 2.
Yes.
Which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Because the FOMO is now gone.
Very Starship Troopers.
Oh my god, it's like the
Starship
most.
Troopers.
And I knew that going in. Yeah, you alright?
Starship.
You feeling alright?
Apparently not.
It is Starship Troopers 100%, and I kept on thinking, like, I hope it gets the youth to actually watch Starship Troopers, because it's one of the best movies ever made. It's like somehow like the cheesiest and also smartest movie ever.
Yeah,
yeah. It's really bizarre.
It almost hides how smart it is under how cheesy it is.
Yeah. Now another cheesy movie that's not smart but is a classic is the original Roadhouse,
which we've talked about before.
No, we haven't.
No, we have. We bring it up every once in a while.
Okay,
because
we do. Well, yeah, because you have to. But I really. I don't really know where I want to go here, but we watched the newest Roadhouse, right? The one on Amazon, the one that Jake Gyllenhaal's in, with Conor McGregor, and like, I was totally perplexed by it, right? So I showed you the original Roadhouse a few weeks ago. The sways, it's iconic. It's probably taught all men my age how to be a man. Yeah, that's why I dress well and I'm constantly kicking ass.
It's why that men your age don't know what be nice means.
We don't have to be nice because pain don't hurt.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, but you have to be nice. But what does that actually mean?
Well, it's, because he's a cooler.
Right.
He's not a bouncer.
Right.
Which was funny because he was neither a cooler nor a bouncer in the new one.
No.
He was just like a maniac.
Yeah.
Who was just unleashed upon a bar.
Yes.
But before... But actually, let's talk about that. So, my thing with this movie, right, is... So, I feel really so interested in how they made this movie, because the original one, though flawed, very slightly,
incredibly flawed,
is at the same time like, you know exactly what's going on for the most part. Like, this guy's a bouncer. He's a famous bouncer.
Not a bouncer.
He's a cooler,
and he's famous.
And he goes in this town's taken over by this rich guy, and he comes in and he beats everybody up. Right? We get that, right?
But there are interesting things about him. He's philosophical. He's well educated.
Yes.
He's like, he has this really calm demeanor, calm personality because that's what he's sort of instilled in himself. He does the Tai Chi in his sweatpants.
Well, he's like a master, right? He's like Musashi Miyamoto, that like samurai, or he's like Kane from Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that monk thing going for him.
Yeah. And so, in the end, when his lever finally gets like flipped, and it's like, and he can't hold back anymore because like someone he cares about has been murdered, and and these people just won't stop, and there's no really good reason for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Then and also he's defending himself and the woman that he loves, even though he's known her for like 2 days.
But anyway, she's like a hot doctor.
Right.
Of course he loves her.
Right. But in self-defense, he kills people.
He totally does. He kills a lot of people. But you're right.
It's after like they've attempted to murder him. They've already murdered his friend in cold blood.
Yeah. It's like a whole thing, right? So by the time though it does get a little weird watching, especially as an adult, when he becomes like a murder rampage at the end, it's surprising. But then I remember the time period, and like the 80s were literally every movie of the 80s that were even considered a guy movie was like good guy, guys mess with him and push him too far. Third act is a blood fest.
Yeah.
Like Commando is the perfect example.
Well,
Commando, he just murders everybody.
And he's saving the town. Like throughout the movie, you see the bad guys, like not only do they mess with the places that he has had good dealings with, but also just other places in town.
Yeah,
like
the whole
the monster
town
truck
is...
through the car dealership and stuff like
Yeah.
all of that stuff. It's messing with all of the people in town, whether they have something to do with Dalton or not.
Yeah, it is very much, the original is very much a Western.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much that idea of the lawman comes into town and cleans it up because it's because of basically an evil gang has taken it over. And that's not this new Roadhouse, really.
No.
But there's parts of that in it. I have to say, can I just start by saying like the whole thing they did when he comes into town and the little girl's there and she's like, it's like, you're a star of a Western, and it gets like really meta for a second. I did not appreciate that.
No, because so much of the movie is trying too hard. And trying to point out things about the original movie that don't apply to this movie.
Yeah. You want to know, like, the telltale sign of a bad movie? When they have to break down how movies work in order to be clever.
Yeah.
That, like, there are so few movies that land that thing that aren't about movie making. And, like, and the whole thing with, like, you're it's like a Western, you're this, you're that. I'm like, no. First off, unearned. Because they just met him like a second ago, and nobody knows anything about this guy. Yep. And like, did that happen after he beat up the bikers? Or like even before that? I swear it happened before that. But even if it did happen after the bikers, still totally unearned.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was like, that was a bad like first omen of like, oh boy. But then this movie is wild. So one of the things I loved about... So as a kid, what I loved about Roadhouse obviously was like the fighting, the sex, the how extreme it was, right? Yeah. Like when I watched that movie when I was
so quintessential like 80s.
It's so 80s, and you can tell because the third act becomes an explosion fest, which is such a time to place. Like watching it again as an adult, I was like, oh my god. I was like, this would be so insane if they did this today. Like, why are there so many explosions? It's sort of like, it becomes kind of like a joke, like a parody.
Yeah.
Like Hot Fuzz or something, or 21 Jump Street remake. But, anyway, but like, with this new one, like, I totally lost track of what I was going to say, actually. So it doesn't matter. So yeah, that was what I was gonna say. But watching it as an adult, the old one made me realize that like I really appreciated how professional Swayze was.
Yes.
Like he showed up, he was well dressed, he was very polite to everybody, he was focused, he didn't drink even though it was a bar. Like everything about him was like he was a professional cooler. Mm-hmm. He had like a reputation. Yeah. People knew who he was. He built a team of bouncers. Yeah. Like there was everything about like him coming in the first movie was a professional thing.
It was, you bring in a consultant who has an expertise in this area that is known for doing this specific thing.
Yeah.
For helping to set your bar or whatever up, to clean up the riffraff and to set it up in a way that they will be able to handle themselves after you leave.
Yeah.
That's like what Swayze was. That was what his job was. People came to him to hire him, like, because that's what he did.
And it was awesome. And it totally, like, I loved that. It was something that I never thought about as a kid, because why would I? But as an adult, I loved. This movie is crazy.
Yeah.
This movie is so, like, it's so, like, untethered to anything that resembles, like, logic. So, like, the person who owns the bar in this movie, she goes randomly to, like, an underground fighting thing to find a guy whose name she's heard.
Yeah, she's
who's
heard
a tough
that
guy.
Post Malone is a tough guy.
It's Post Malone.
And so, like, but we don't know why specifically him, because he's tough and all the other bouncers haven't worked out. Like,
yeah, she's literally looking for somebody to beat up people.
Yeah.
She's not looking for a bouncer, really.
She's not
looking for
someone,
a maniac.
Yeah, exactly. That's just it. Yeah, she's not looking for someone to help clean up the bar. She's looking for someone to beat the crap out of the people that are messing with her bar.
Yeah.
But nothing that's gonna have a lasting effect.
It is as if the open of this movie is like the lady owning the bar. It's like she's like the gang in Kung Fu Hustle that wants to get the beast out to win.
Yeah.
Or like the mobsters in Boondock Saints that
Yeah.
wants to get their dad out.
Yeah.
Like she's looking for a monster. Which is hilarious because Post Malone just seems like the sweetest man. So
Right?
clearly he can't be a monster. But and then Gyllenhaal shows up, takes his shirt off. Everyone swoons because the man looks like he is made of marble.
What,
Like he is somehow more jacked than a Greek statue, which I didn't even think was possible.
I don't know what he did to get in that kind of shape. It must not have been any fun. He must have had at least a year of like hating life.
There is so much hypertrophy. What is it called? Anyway,
I don't
Dude,
know, but
man,
he looks incredible.
he has so much muscle that his abs were like pushed out.
Yeah,
They weren't even like washboard. They were like pushed out like a wall you can climb.
And I'm sure a lot of ladies want to climb that wall.
Hypertrophy, that's the word. Yeah, the dude is so jacked. And it's funny because
like good for him. Holy crap, but
he
my
looks amazing.
Gosh, like that's just that's not fun.
Oh yeah. No, well it's funny. He's one of those guys.
Him.
He's always had that, right? Like he got really jacked originally for Prince of Persia back in the day.
Right.
And then he got really skinny for Nightcrawler. He also got really cut for that. He did a boxing movie a few years ago. So he's one of those actors who can do that. He's got that Bale thing, but like it's so crazy how jacked he is. But anyway, the whole reason, so Post Malone sees him and he's like, no, I'm not fighting him. He's like runs out, right? And so the whole deal is like Gyllenhaal was this UFC fighter who killed a guy. And so everybody's like scared of him, right? But anyway, long story short, this lady owns a bar, sees this go down, and is like, well, clearly that's my man.
Yeah.
Because everyone's really scared of him. And so she gets him to come. He doesn't want to because there's this whole sort of like unnecessary, quasi-suicidal, broken man story going on here that we totally needed in a Roadhouse movie. But he ends up coming, and then sort of the plot really starts, right? So my main problem with this movie
is it the coffee?
Other than the fact that like it's not really well written at all, is like
I don't think there was a script.
You might be right. Part of me wonders if Gyllenhaal just like straight up was improvising everything he did.
I feel like half the cast was improvising most of those scenes.
It did feel like a lot of
it did not feel like things were actually written. Like when you're watching the scenes, you're like, how there's no way anybody wrote this dialogue. It's so uncomfortable and bizarre.
It was weird because it was all so like none of it. The only things I remember were the outrageous things when there was a bar fight goes on and then an extra goes bar fight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening? And I'm like, is that like Doug Liman's buddy? Like, what is happening? Like, let's take a second and have this extra say this.
And then every once in a while, they do a scene that was paying homage to the original movie, but it was like one of those useless scenes from the original. Like when the like bartender girl comes and brings him breakfast.
Yeah, we didn't even get. Well, I would say we didn't even get the Swayze butt shot, but we got plenty of McGregor.
Oh my god,
shots.
so much McGregor butt.
By the way, McGregor, I was trying to figure it out, and I couldn't while watching the movie, but I realized this morning, McGregor is doing the Doflamingo walk all through that movie.
Yes!
He's doing this thing with his arms, which I get, but then he does this thing with his legs. Yeah.
I could not, but
Yeah, it's the Doflamingo walk.
The thing is that, like, he is a cartoon character, and he is
100%.
delightful.
Oh, he's the best.
He is wonderfully delightful as a cartoon psychopath.
Yeah.
He is the best part of the movie.
Oh, by far.
Like, and hilarious, but like, neither he nor Jake Gyllenhaal belong in this movie.
Well, he's the only one having fun, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he like, is, like, he's smiling the whole movie.
Yeah.
He's fighting the whole movie. He's the only one, I think, who actually got to have, like, some version of sex in the movie. Because remember the opening scene? Like, he's like,
jumping out a window.
Yeah.
Like, naked, yeah.
The guy is living his best life in this movie.
Honestly, when you're like, oh my god, he's the Tasmanian devil. He's 100% just being the Tasmanian devil in this movie.
Yeah, he is, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but he sort of plays that villain that you don't see a lot, but it's it's kind of like the Joker, or like in Dark Knight, or it's like the Winter Soldier and Winter Soldier. It's that like villain that just every scene he shows up, he gobbles it up and he owns it. And he's a threat to the guy, and he never wears out his welcome. Like, there was not one moment in this movie where I'm like, enough of McGregor. and even so much so, like, they did weird things. Like, you remember that iconic scene in The Dark Knight where like the Joker escapes and he's got his head out the window with a cop car? Like, McGregor is driving a driver's ed like car in this movie like a maniac while drinking like what appears to be like 15 coconuts.
Yes.
Like the water. Like, it's so...
And then he just like slams into a coconut, like into a palm tree or something.
He
like,
just drives essentially right into the house. Yeah, like, it's so funny. And it's funny because like so much of this movie feels like missed opportunities. I'm like, how did this stuff end up so good? And there's other moments where Gyllenhaal is acting and he's great, but it's like it doesn't fit the movie.
It doesn't, because what, like, I've talked about this like just with you, but when he's doing his like actual acting, there's nothing that he's getting from anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's acting to air, but he's acting in a way that like it should be interactive.
It seems as if he was never on set with any other actors. Right? Like everyone else was acting off his stand-in.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Because there was never a moment that felt like there was a chemistry. And part of that was by design. Because like clearly like he had this weird PTSD thing. And everyone else was like scared, scared in the town. Because, it's a Western. Because the little girl told us all it was a Western, just in case we hadn't heard. You know what's funny, though? The whole thing of us talking about this wasn't even my goal for this conversations. I wanted to talk about something kind of different, though it did have to do with Roadhouse.
Yeah, but once you start talking about this, oh god.
Well, just remind me that I wanted to get something different before.
Do you want to just flip to whatever you wanted to get to?
No.
Are you gonna remember what it is?
I am, but I need you to remind me that there was something else.
I'll try to remember.
So the thing that startles me in this movie, that is so insane to me, is like, you remember you were talking about before, like Swayze's like peaceful monk guy, they flip his lever, and then it's like
throat
murder
ripping.
time,
Yeah.
right? Don't even get me started on throat ripping. We'll get back to that. I just you need to pay homage to where people have come from and to history.
Yeah, saying
and when
be
you
nice doesn't cut it.
No, especially the most throwaway be nice. That's what you were gonna say before, right?
Yeah.
That was. You want to explain that?
Disappointing.
You want to explain that?
Well, I mean, in the whole be nice thing in the original thing, it was like a big deal, and so during his
it was almost like the first rule of Fight Club.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
And in this, like in the final fight, while he's like, I don't know, kicking Conor McGregor at some point, like he just goes, "Be nice," and like it's so.
I thought it was Conor McGregor said it to him and threw him into a piano.
Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah,
I thought he said it.
It was.
I don't know.
It was weird. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was totally. But yeah, and speaking of that whole like be nice thing, Double Deuce got demoted to a pie shop.
Yeah.
Which is fine. The whole calling the Roadhouse was like whatever. Like it felt like everyone felt like they really earned their like script writing money that week. They're like, guys, we figured out the algorithm needs us to say Roadhouse as many times as possible in this movie. Because no. This movie is not based on the 1989 movie Roadhouse. This movie is based on the Family Guy sketch.
Yeah.
Parodying Roadhouse.
Yeah.
So we need people to say Roadhouse as much as possible.
Yeah.
And so anyway, but the thing that boggles my mind, right, is that like, he's getting all these fights and blah blah blah, and he's got all this like PTSD from killing a guy in the rain. But then when everything switches, like when Swayze switched, he became a bit of a extreme version of himself, like a more violent version of himself, like a man pushed too far. Like, Gyllenhaal became, like, Dexter. Like, out of nowhere, this, like, depressed UFC fighter all of a sudden became, like Grosse Point Blank or like
Yeah.
a hitman, and I was like, what happened?
Yeah, I'm gonna murder this guy, take his body, frame somebody. Like, what?
Yeah, like kill an entire house of men, put them in their in a trunk. I was like, and by the way, I would have been all for Jake Gyllenhaal playing this character doing these things because this is where he shines. Jake Gyllenhaal has the face and body of an action hero, but the acting soul of Donnie Darko and like a disturbed Nightcrawler man.
So right. If he had like come in and been doing that stuff and there was like some other like underlying story, you know, like the reason he killed that guy in the ring is because it was part of a PTSD thing from like when he was like in the military or like
special ops. Exactly.
Yeah. And so like it all comes back to that, like, but no. He was just some random UFC fighter and now he's like straight up like
now it's like
hitman murdering guys. Yeah,
yes,
like,
history of violence all of a sudden.
It
made no sense.
Yeah, and like
and was like as if I had not seen the original movie, it was as if I would feel like I was missing something from the plot.
Yeah, well,
because nobody would do that.
Like and again, things that they just brought over from the other movie, it's like, you know, Dr. Girlfriend, like, you know, like but where none of it feels earned and none of it feels like it makes any sense, and at least in that, you know, at least in the original, he was something unique.
Yeah.
He was well educated, which is in his medical records.
Yeah,
you know, he's a philosopher. He like had an he was an interesting soul.
Yeah.
And in this, I think after beating up a bunch of guys and bringing them to the hospital, he made her laugh, and then she found his houseboat or something.
Well, what's great about this and how she made him laugh and why everyone likes him is he is a lovable psychopath. Like, that's what this movie's about. This movie is about...
only lovable because it's Gyllenhaal.
This movie is about a psychopath for good.
Yeah.
Because what's funny is, like, in the original Roadhouse, he was a professional. He got put in a situation that he didn't truly understand, and everything went kind of crazy.
Yeah.
In this one, he was a broken man who had psychopathic tendencies that then got thrown in a situation he didn't understand and went full on like John Wick.
Yeah.
Like, it was so weird.
Yeah.
Like how, and it's funny because it really showcases the fact that like the original Roadhouse was about a thing. It was about what would happen if like a professional cooler / bouncer got put in this crazy situation and had to turn into this guy. And he had a dark past with the throat ripping, which is the best sentence I could ever say. But overall, it was like a fairly normal professional guy. And this was just like, it was like the blooming psychopath. But anyway, this gets to my greater thing, okay? This is what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because I'm so excited about it. So when we watched Reacher, okay, on Amazon,
that's a good show.
Before, a great show. You know, we already watched second season, but I'm talking about first season, right? Yeah. When we watched the first season, about halfway through the first season, I was like, God, this is so familiar. Like, I feel like I've seen this story before, and I couldn't figure it out. And then finally I realized, I'm like, damn, like, Reacher is just like Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Now, I hadn't seen Roadhouse since I was a kid, right? Yeah. And so to me, like, so everything about Reacher was Roadhouse if Dalton were ex-military, right?
Yeah, and granted, like, you know, there were other movies of the time that were very similar in plot, but you're right. Like that basic plot of the like the small town with the guy, like
the guy shows up out of nowhere, gets embroiled in this insane like conspiracy. There's this like rich family that's like hurting the town and keeping them hostage.
Well, and both of those things, both Reacher and the original Roadhouse, do fit into that like Western.
Yeah.
Into that Western thing.
The modern day Westerns, for sure.
This one does not.
Well, and that's the thing. So anyway, so I was like, oh, that's so cool. So then I rewatched Roadhouse, the original, thinking, oh, Reacher's just like Roadhouse. And then after watching the new Roadhouse, I was like, well, only tangentially.
Yeah.
I was like, there are some markers, but you couldn't necessarily say. You could say maybe the writer was influenced by certain elements, but you're like, it's different enough. And especially I read the book for the first Reacher that I felt like, oh, it was different enough, right? And then I watched this Roadhouse, and I'm like, they Reacher-fied Roadhouse. They took the idea of Roadhouse, and then they made Dalton more like Reacher. Because Reacher is a psycho.
Yeah.
I mean, he's awesome, and he's a good guy. And
He's
we know he's a good guy. But Reacher takes the law into his own hands
He does.
with very little consideration.
But
Like,
he
very
has,
little.
But he has the background to back it up. Like when he's like you know.
But he also has no authority.
No. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm not saying that
It is
like the
good.
way like I mean
Yeah.
cleaning up the town, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
But I'm not like
He's got the skills.
But exactly,
Yeah.
he has the background, the skills to set people up. To,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
like
Exactly.
not random UFC psychopath.
The scene in this Roadhouse, which, by the way, in any other movie with everyone involved, Jake Gyllenhaal, the guy who was playing the cop, the beach, everything, I would have been down for if it wasn't in Roadhouse. But the scene where he takes the cop wakes up, he has the cop's gun, he shoots the guy that he had already killed to try to frame the cop. I thought that was an awesome scene, except for the fact that it made zero sense for Dalton. It made zero sense for any version of Dalton, including this one. And I was like, these fucking guys are doing this is a Reacher thing.
Yeah.
Reacher would have done this.
Yeah.
They 100% took Roadhouse and they're like, let's make it like this other hit thing we have.
But you know what one of the best parts about that scene is? They knew it was nonsense because
Yeah.
the cop goes, that's not going to, they're going to know that that's not what killed him. And
Yeah.
he's like,
It'll
I don't
confuse
confuse
them.
him. No, it won't.
Yeah.
No, it won't. Like,
Well, it will be confusing because they don't know who. You can't track who punched someone in the trachea.
no, you can't
but,
track that.
But they'll know that.
But they'll know the gun had nothing to do with it.
They'll know those bullets are post-mortem.
Post-mortem, yeah. And in the least he could have shot him in the throat where he killed the guy. That would have at least been sort of confusing.
I agree with you though. It wasn't fish or fowl because it was like if it confuses them, but then we as a viewer know that it won't really but he's not having a weird American Psycho breakdown either. Like what is going on with Dalton in this movie? It's sort of you remember that meme a few years ago where the women were like, are the men all right? It was sort of is Dalton all right?
Yeah.
No,
he's not.
And that's what's so funny of the original movie is you kind of understand everything that happened, especially after they kill his mentor and best friend.
Yeah.
And that's the trigger for him to go kill Crazy Rampage. You're sort of totally on board.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's I don't know, I get it, they all suck, but it's almost it's funny. I remember watching interviews with psychopaths that have borderline personality disorder, and sometimes they just kill people because the people just push them too far, and they have this sort of sense that they're invulnerable to anything, and they want to show them that they're not. And then they end up murdering them. And that's what it felt like. It felt like they pushed him too far and he killed them. But I feel like he was already killing them before they kidnapped the girl.
Yeah.
I mean, they burned down that bookstore, right? So that was you could make a thing of he's trying to protect the people. But it didn't really feel like that.
No.
Because he never really was that endeared to the people. It just felt like a psychopath who was, you know what it felt more like? It felt like an anime where the character Geto in Tokyo in Jujutsu Kaisen, where he was having problems, he tried to be good, and then he just went full on psycho.
Yeah.
It felt like that.
Well, the thing is that Gyllenhaal knew that it was coming. The whole people are you afraid? It's because he's afraid that he knows that when he's afraid he's gonna hit that point where he's gonna snap and but again it none of that really made sense.
Yeah.
okay, in the ring, and he took it too far, and he couldn't stop himself, but that then just happens in normal life when you've emotionally pushed him too far, and then oh god, and then the bad guy's plan was a real estate scheme, which once again so 80s, and I guess the Roadhouse is the one holdout, but what about the bookstore and the things on that strip mall? And
it was so insane to me that he was like sitting there drinking and he was looking at his map and it was like stuff over here, the Roadhouse in the middle, and then like all this stuff, and I'm like, but there's all this other land you already own. Can't you just build it over there and not worry about the Roadhouse?
What is the Roadhouse going to, like, you don't have plans that involve the space of the, what does it matter? Is it going to steal your bar business there?
And the craziest thing that I couldn't even like fathom from the bad guy's point of view is like everything was so elaborate. It was like a Bond villain. They're like, okay, so we're gonna pay this gang to like rough up the Roadhouse for like a month until okay, that didn't work. Okay, well we're gonna pay off the police to threaten there, and it's like, well, dude, you guys just burned down a like bookstore to show. Why didn't you just burn down the Roadhouse?
Yeah,
and then force her to sell the land to you. Like what? Like what? Why are you posing impossible things?
Dave, he's not right in the head. Let's talk about when we meet him and he's forcing a barber to straight razor him
that was pretty funny.
On a boat on choppy waters.
Yeah. Well, even that.
And then he punches out the captain.
Well, even that was like the retrification of this because, I'm glad it didn't come down to a fist fight between Swayze and Ben Gazzara, like the original. But in Reacher, they focus. The one difference between the book and the show is they focus more on the bad guy's son in the show, and making him a villain. And it was the same with this. Like Ben Gazzara, I don't even know if he had a son in Roadhouse or if he played a part, but he definitely wasn't the main bad guy.
No.
And by the way, like this is the thing, and I hate clowning on the movie because like I like everyone involved, right? Like I think obviously like Gyllenhaal's great, all the other actors that have lead roles, I've seen other things and I like them. So it's not that like anyone's doing a bad job. It's just that the script did not serve them well.
No.
And I felt really...
it was so poorly shot.
It was poorly shot. And Doug Liman, hit or miss. He's done some really great things like Born Identity, Mr. and Miss Smith. But I will say, like, some of the fight stuff looked awesome and some of it looked really bad.
Well, so the fight stuff was actually done in this, like, special way where a lot of it was CGI body doubles. So a lot of it was essentially a cartoon. Which,
that
honestly,
makes sense.
a lot of the motion, even like when the car was gonna run Gyllenhaal over, like so much of it looked like a cartoon.
Yeah.
And once again, like Conor McGregor's character was a cartoon. Wonderful. Loved him.
He was great.
Well, but he was a cartoon.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, I will have to say, and this is like nobody cares if they don't watch UFC or whatever, and I hardly do, but I did like that a lot of the fighting between the two of them at the end was a little more like they were grappling, they were doing submission holds, they weren't just striking.
Yeah.
Because like halfway through the bar fight with everybody, I was like, why are these two guys striking all the time? Like, they're UFC. Like, striking is, like, a percentage of what they do. But they also, like, wrestle.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm glad when they were mano a mano, even though that stuff really isn't as interesting to watch, as a viewer, striking is always more fun, like kicking and punching.
It's less exciting, but more interesting.
Well, and it's also, like, it's just more realistic, right? For, like, how Gyllenhaal would fight.
Yeah.
Being a UFC fighter. But anyway, that last fight, like, that was pretty good. I like the fight between the two of them. But yeah, and then I didn't want to get into the love interest. She was just weird.
No, it didn't make any sense. Like, it didn't make any sense in the original movie either, but at least it, like, sort of made more sense.
It reminded me of, like, the same kind of, like, bad decisions they made with, like, Miami Vice with him and, like, Gong Li. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the movie totally sucked. And honestly, I'm so surprised how bad it was.
I was hoping for something better. Like I didn't go into I don't think I watched a trailer for it or anything.
Yeah.
You know, I knew what the original was, and the thing is that when you have an original that though it's a classic, it's still bad.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you have a bad movie and you're like, yeah, we're gonna remake this bad movie, like you can't do that and then make a worse movie.
It's,
you know,
it's amazing.
Like you have to be an Ocean's 11 or The Thing.
Yeah.
You know, like these are like remakes, like, you know, that are well done because they are off of something that was bad. You know, yeah.
I will say though, two things. One, I don't even know what this says about either of us, but I think we were both sad there wasn't more Post Malone in the movie.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I kept on hearing that Post Malone was in the movie, and he got a pretty good credit.
Yeah,
like, a few of the people
and
that had one
like
line
2
or
songs
whatever.
in it.
Yeah, and he was there in that opening scene.
I thought he was going to be like a bouncer or something.
Exactly. I thought it actually would have kind of made sense. Like I thought, you know, maybe he and Gyllenhaal had a thing going where they were like scamming or whatever, and then he could have called him in the way that Swayze called in.
Yeah,
like and he could have come in to be one of the bouncers.
Yeah.
But no, he was just there for that one opening scene and a couple songs.
Yeah, and I also just like it's really relevant. It's not that important, but like, you know, what I loved about the original one was like he came in and it's so 80s, but he reorganized the bar. He built like a team of bouncers. Like I loved that in the original, and in this one it was like, yeah, this is one kid is a bartender. I'll teach him how to be a bouncer, and then get another kid, and it was just like. It was like whatever.
But again, Swayze was a professional at essentially reorganizing a bar. It's like we said, he wasn't a bouncer. He was a cooler, but also like, you know, he got paid the big bucks because he had a whole professional skill. Like he was like brought in as a consultant to remanage that bar, and Gyllenhaal was just a thug.
He really was.
But you know, a thug that's like way too zen for like there's no reason they don't explain his zenness either. Like
no. Well, because it mostly comes off as depression.
Yeah, and like, you know, and then they like he also is going for the coffee like Swayze did, you know, but again, none of it feels like they had a reason. Like it was just, well, they did this in the other movie.
Yeah. Kind of wish they did more of that though, to be honest.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was that. But this is the moment I've been waiting for the entire time after we watched. Anna, would you just let me know?
Yeah.
Between the original Roadhouse and this new Roadhouse, what's the best Roadhouse?
Family Guy.
What's the best Roadhouse movie?
Yeah, Swayze.
Yes! So I would like to thank Doug Liman
and
Jake Gyllenhaal, Conor McGregor, of making Anna acknowledge that the original Roadhouse is a great movie.
No. Just better than the original. That being said, you know, Conor McGregor is the better thug than
oh yeah, than the I effed guys like you in prison guy. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Although I did like they had a guy that felt like the a polar bear fell on me guy, the guy that he broke his arm. I loved him.
He was great. He was very funny.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah, I liked him a lot, and I liked I was really bummed out they didn't do any throat rips in this movie at all. Not one throat rip. Not even for the fans.
No.
I thought that's how Conor was going to go.
A few throat like violence, but no throat punches. Yeah, I needed like my.
Yeah, no, I just think you should really respect, you know, what came before.
Yeah,
it's really sad. All right, well, I mean, Roadhouse. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, there's nothing else.
I think we covered it. All right.
Roadhouse.
If people are still watching, though, they should go to our website, geekworldradio.com, so they can see our WonderCon photos.
Yes.
They're really good.
And the video.
The video is also on our YouTube channel. So those are good.
Yay.
All right.